We begin here. The National Police Commissioner is worried about the arrest of senior intelligence officers. Crime intelligence boss Dumisani Khumalo has appeared in the Pretoria Magistrates Court along with 6 other senior officers facing graft charges. 6 were granted 10,000 rand bail each. The 7th suspect remains in custody as he has a fraud case pending.
The National Commissioner is very concerned given the severity of allegations that we have read in the media space and what we have seen in court today against our senior officers. Like I've indicated, he has not received a factual report from ID. He is awaiting a factual report on the arrests of these senior officers. The Crime Intelligence Division is a very integral part of prevention and combating of crime. Actually, 90% of our successes in the SAPS are crime intelligence driven. So we cannot allow a situation where this particular division experiences instability.
The prosecution of high-profile corruption cases remains a big problem from the National Prosecuting Authority. Their latest test is the case against crime intelligence boss Dumisani Khumalo and other high-profile individuals. For a closer look at the mammoth task facing the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, I'm joined by Advocate Lauren John. She's the founder of Law and Governance Academy of Southern Africa. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Advocate. We do appreciate it. I think many South Africans are shocked, but probably not even surprised at some of the allegations and charges leveled against crime intelligence boss, given that we've been constantly told about the corruption that exists. But how detrimental is this actually, Advocate, to know that somebody who's supposed to be the head of crime intelligence and protecting and ensuring that everything runs smoothly is now being accused of graft charges against him?
Having me on air. Hi, Liam. It's lovely to be here. Just to clarify, it's Lauren Kohn, but pronounced like John, which is why I put that there. And it's lovely to be here. I agree with your point regarding surprise. I actually, in reflecting upon this recent arrest, referred to an article that was written by Dolly in 2022. It was just prior to his appointment, Mr. Khumalo. And of course, the irony was that he came in with a view to rejuvenating the relevant crime intelligence unit, and in fact had even been previously been given recognition for his role in relation to his prior work at the SAPS. So it's quite ironic that the person, and as you say, is also within relation to Richard Mdluli, equally it was the same problem. For me, though, when we say it's sort of how detrimental is it really, I think, for me, there's always a flip side to the virtue vice sort of situation that we have here. Because on the one hand, it's deeply devastating and it's extremely detrimental. I mean, the SAPs are there entrenched under Chapter 11 of our Constitution to ensure the security services of the Republic are administered and delivered in a way that ensures the peace and the well-being and the stability and the unity of the Republic of South Africa as a whole. And of course, if our head of crime intelligence within the SAPs is failing in that regard, that's a massive flouting of a fundamental constitutional obligation. The flip side of that, however, what I would say is that it shows that other checkers and balances in the system, so this is an executive failing really, because the SAPS, as you know, is within the executive, broadly speaking, in the sense that there's ministerial control. And unlike the National Prosecuting Authority, whose independence has been repeatedly re-entrenched by our Constitutional Court and jurisprudence and legislation, the IDAC, as the Special Investigative Directorate here, tasked with the mammoth task of following up on the Zondo recommendations in relation to state capture and graft, is actually doing really incredible work. Equally, I think it's important to note that the relevant Portfolio Committee on Policing Member of Parliament exposed the need for further investigations, which were done pursuant to the SAPS Act. And it shows, again, the value of having well-run investigations headed up by those with integrity in order to really expose the truth and therefore failings of integrity and accountability within our system. So while it is dismally depressing, it's also hope-giving that the separation of powers in South Africa, we need a multitude of checkers and balances. And some of them are actually, despite great odds, often under-resourced, often faced with unfair critique. May not be perfect, but at least we are seeing some results of this.
Would you say, though, Advocate, that there might be an element of political interference? Oftentimes, the unfortunate reality is that there is politics involved in perhaps some of these cases brought forward. Some might have not been found guilty, but it was merely just a political decision. Would you say that's the case in this instance, or is it too early to tell?
When you say found not guilty, do you mean by a court of law? I mean, of course, I don't know if you're referring to the recent Supreme Court Tabete Nulane judgment, where, of course, there was a devastating travesty of justice in the sense that the High Court had failed egregiously in numerous respects by virtue of several material mistakes of law, as a result of which several complicit in the Nulane saga, which was essentially a dry run for Estina Dairy, was set off scot-free. And now, several years later, the Supreme Court of Appeal has found that the High Court misdirected itself, though those people should have, on the fact and law, been found guilty. So it's got to start afresh. That's a waste of public funds. It's, again, National Prosecuting Authority must again pour effort into its work. And this is why I think we have to be very mindful of ensuring that all critique and all views that are leveled against any locus of state authority is done in a way that is informed and balanced and constructive. Of course, we need critique. That's part of our healthy participatory democracy, but it must be well-grounded and well-founded. So as for not guilty, I mean, I can't posit as to what a court will find, although I have to say on the research I've spent some time during this morning, it looks pretty damning. But again, the eNCA and the relevant, the judicial system, both of them respectively being separate branches, the eNCA, as I argue, falls under what I call the fourth integrity and accountability branch of state in South Africa, also comprised of our Chapter 9 institutions, the JSC, the Public Service Commission, and so forth. And they must do their work independently, but equally there's a sort of a synergistic checking and balancing, a complementarity of roles. And we can see here how the work of, for example, the Zondo Commission of Inquiry has fed into the work of the presidential response. Indeed, he's actually outlined the recommendations, the responses thereto, and we are seeing some progress in that respect. And the IDAC, having been made permanent, is a direct response to the need for a dedicated, permanent anti-corruption body. And look what it's just done. It's exposed those at the highest ranks in the SAPs who are there to protect us. I mean, Act for Children, they know the number 10111, but what do I say to them when the head of crime intelligence is using money unlawfully for his own enrichment? It's devastating. But then I equally say, well, look at these other loci and of state authority that are really doing their darndest, and many good public servants that are doing their darndest to uphold the tenets of our hard-won constitutional democracy.
It's hair-raising when you think about it and you put it in that context. Just in closing, advocates, would you say that the rot runs deep when it comes to officials, especially now what we are seeing? It's not just the head of crime intelligence, but it's other officials implicated as well. You have the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola, saying he's very worried and concerned. And I guess the question is, how did we get to this point where you don't have one, and not just the head of crime intelligence, but you have a number of officials that are implicated and facing very serious charges?
Yeah, I mean, the rot runs deep. That's a powerful line there. I think it's pretty bang on the money, is fair to say. And I think that, slowly but surely we need to expose this systemic rot. And I think that, insofar as it runs deep and various people are implicated, I mean, obviously we can't, the eNCA, as I said, must carry on its mandate fearlessly and with integrity and with utmost independence. But equally, I think all relevant, for me, when I read about this arrest, another point that struck me, and when you say the rot runs deep, was the fact this wasn't only a failure of to adhere to the procurement prescripts, the basic fundamental constitutional responsibilities of the SATs and so forth. But also there was a failure of cooperative governance here. The Minister of Infrastructure was, not the relevant head of Public Works and Infrastructure was not consulted. And, Chapter 3 of our Constitution is dedicated to ensuring cooperative governance. You have various constitutional provisions here that were egregiously flouted. And we can't have the left not speaking to the right. As we use the term rogue, rot, I mean, this is what happens when there isn't that proper collective effort. I think fundamentally, this is why when we have commissions of inquiry and or investigations like in the nature of what Section 34 of the SATS Act contemplates and what has exposed some of this rot, we need to take those findings seriously. It is absolutely vital that investigations, where they reveal a prima facie evidence of wrongdoing, although not in a criminal or civil law sense as in a trial, but that must therefore be taken seriously. And it must be followed up on. Otherwise, it makes a mockery of the entire truth-seeking process that these investigations do.
Okay.
So I think the rot does run deep, but it's being exposed.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to wait and see how this unfolds. Thank you very much for your insights. We really do appreciate it. That is Advocate Lauren John, and she's the founder of the Law and Governance Academy of Southern Africa. We appreciate your time this evening.